Someone hands you a photograph. It's you. You're maybe 2 years old, mid-laugh, completely alive in a moment you will never get back. And you remember absolutely none of it. You lived an entire life before the one you remember now. Thousands of days, your first steps, your first word, the first time the world ever frightened you. All of it happened to you, and almost all of it is gone. You probably assume those memories simply faded. Too long ago, too small to hold on to. But the real answer is far stranger. Your earliest memories may not have faded at all. They may still be inside you, fully formed, sealed behind a door you have never once been able to open. So why can't you reach them? There is a name for this. Psychologists call it childhood amnesia or infantile amnesia. It describes a strange and almost universal fact about being human. Nearly no one can recall anything from before the age of 3. The term goes back to Sigmund Freud, who noticed it more than a century ago. He found it bizarre that the years which shape us most completely, the years we learn to walk, to speak, to trust the people who raised us, leave behind almost no conscious trace. He described a kind of veil drawn over our earliest selves. For a long time, the explanation seemed obvious. A baby's brain is unfinished. It simply cannot form memories yet. But that explanation is wrong. Babies form memories constantly. A 6-month-old can remember how to make a mobile spin days later. A 1-year-old recognizes faces, recalls routines, learns which sounds mean comfort and which mean danger. Your infant brain was not a blank page. It was recording everything. So if the memories were being made, where did they go? This is the question that has quietly obsessed memory researchers for decades, and the answer they keep arriving at is not the one you would expect. Carol Peterson, a psychologist at Memorial University in Canada, has spent years asking children and adults to dig up their very first memory. Across thousands of people, a pattern appears. Most adults can reach back to somewhere around age 3, sometimes 3.5. Before that point, the record goes silent. But here is the strange part. When she asks young children the same question, they remember much further back. A 4-year-old can describe things that happened to them at age 2. The memories exist, the child is holding them right now, and then, a few years later, those same memories are gone. Think about what that means. The memory of your 2nd birthday was not lost in infancy. It survived. It was still there when you were 4, maybe still there when you were 5. And then, somewhere between the ages of about 5 and 7, your own mind quietly erased it. This is the discovery that changed how scientists understand the whole phenomenon. The work of psychologist Patricia Bauer revealed something almost eerie. Young children carry a hoard of early memories, but those memories decay at an accelerated rate, far faster than adult memories do. Bauer called it a race between forgetting and the maturing of the memory system. For the first several years of life, forgetting wins. Whole chapters of your childhood are deleted while you are still living it, and you never notice because you are too young to know what you are losing. By the time you are around 7 years old, the deleting slows, the wall goes up, and everything behind it becomes unreachable. So your earliest self was not too primitive to remember. Your earliest self was being overwritten. But why? Why would a brain go to the trouble of forming detailed memories only to systematically destroy them? To answer that, you have to go down to the level of the cells. There is a small, curled structure deep inside your brain called the hippocampus. It is the part of you that stitches experiences into memories, that turns a moment into something you can revisit later. And in a baby, the hippocampus is doing something it will almost never do again at this scale. It is exploding with new cells. This process is called neurogenesis. It simply means the birth of new neurons, new brain cells. In an infant, the hippocampus is generating them at a staggering pace, wiring itself together as fast as it possibly can. For a long time, scientists assumed that more brain growth must mean better memory, more cells, more storage. It sounds obvious. It turns out the opposite may be true. 2 neuroscientists, Paul Franklin and Sheena Jocelyn, ran a series of experiments that flipped the entire assumption on its head. Working with young animals, they found that this flood of new neurons does not just add to the memory system, it rewrites it. Every new cell that wedges itself into the hippocampus disturbs the existing connections, the delicate circuits where a memory was stored. The new wiring scrambles the old, and when they slowed down that explosion of new cells, something remarkable happened. The young brains held onto their memories longer. When they sped it up, memories vanished faster. In other words, the very thing that makes a baby's brain so powerful, its breathtaking ability to grow and rewire itself, is the same thing that erases the baby's past. Your infant brain was not failing to keep your memories. It was trading them away. It chose growth over remembering. It chose to become you, rather than to keep a record of who you were before. Sit with that for a moment. The forgetting was not a malfunction. It was the price of becoming a person. And there may be a second reason those memories slip away. One that has nothing to do with cells and everything to do with words. Think about what a memory actually is. Not a photograph, but a story. When you remember your 10th birthday, you don't just see colors and shapes. You narrate it. There was a cake. Your friend was there. You felt a certain way. The memory has a shape, a sequence, a meaning, and you standing at the center of it, as the person it happened to. A baby has none of that yet. Before you had language, you had no words to hang an experience on. Before you had a stable sense of self, there was no clear you for the memory to happen to. The events washed over you fully and completely, but there was no narrator inside to write them down. This is why so many researchers believe your earliest lasting memories tend to appear right around the time your language and your sense of self come online. The story-making machinery switches on, and only then does life start to stick. So part of what you lost was never filed in a way you could ever retrieve. It was experienced by someone who did not yet have the tools to keep it. But here is where it gets genuinely unsettling. Newer research, using brain scans of infants far too young to speak, suggests that babies may actually be encoding memories after all, laying them down somewhere in the brain, even in those earliest months. Which raises a possibility that is hard to shake. Maybe childhood amnesia is not entirely a failure to store. Maybe it is, at least in part, a failure to retrieve. Maybe some of those memories are not gone. Maybe they are simply locked in a format your adult mind no longer knows how to read, written in a language you stopped speaking before you ever learned to speak at all. Your first home. The face of someone who held you, the exact feeling of being carried through a dark room and feeling completely safe. It may all still be in there, intact, silent, waiting behind a door with no handle. You will probably never open it. And that should bother you more than it does. Because of all the things you have forgotten in your life, these are the ones that made you. The years you cannot remember are the years that decided who you would become. The way you were held shaped how you trust. The sounds around your crib shaped the language living in your mouth. The first time you reached for someone and they reached back taught your nervous system what love feels like, long before you had a word for it. You are, right now, the finished sculpture of an artist you cannot remember, and the artist was you. This is the quiet strangeness at the center of every human life. You did not begin at your first memory. You began long before, in a stretch of time you carried out completely and then deleted. Like a builder who tears down the scaffolding once the house is standing. The scaffolding is gone, but every wall it held up is still here. So the next time someone shows you a photograph of a child you cannot recognize as yourself, do not look at it as a stranger. Look at it as a message from the only person who was ever fully present for the most important years of your life, and who paid for your becoming by forgetting it all. Someone hands you a photograph. It's you, and the fact that you cannot remember that moment is not a hole in your mind. It is the proof that your mind was busy doing the most important work it would ever do.